oh my gosh, you already have a mortgage, but it's in education debt. Debt for med school is probably going to be somewhere in the range of $400,000 to $500,000.
I've been kind of learning on how I'm going to be growing my own personal business.
Credit card debt, education debt, it's very similar. Nobody wants it. Oh my gosh, don't touch your home. You could lose it.
I don't want to be wasting my money. We're here at the Agentic AI conference just outside Washington, D.C., and I am with Luanne. Luanne and I are in the same mastermind with Molly Mahoney, who is an amazing AI educator, marketer.
Just all around wonderful person.
She's been somebody that's been mentoring me. She has built very large online communities. So I use high-level software, I do social media, and Molly also does all of that stuff. So I've been kind of learning on how I'm going to be growing my own personal business. And she works with all kinds of entrepreneurs on their journey. There is maybe 8 of us from her bigger community that happen to be at this conference.
I think there's 8 to 10.
8 to 10 of us?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I thought I would do, I was here, is interview us and kind of talk about that entrepreneurial journey and maybe even get some of the clips of what were the biggest takeaways from yesterday. But before we go into yesterday, I wanted to hear your personal story because we're all in these like mastermind groups where we discuss our businesses a little bit. But a lot of times we're breaking down the best AI tools, how to be structuring our offers, how to be using software, always how to use AI better. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your own entrepreneurial story? Because you said you weren't corporate.
No, never been
So
corporate.
what is your business? What's the name of your business?
So I'm Luanne Lee, and I created Your College Planning Coach 20 years ago. And my background, prior to getting into financial services, I was cleaning houses, I was waitressing, I was fitting all kinds of things into my family's situation. My husband was in the military, that we traveled to Australia and whatnot.
Every 3-4 years, you're moving somewhere. I have military in my background. Yeah.
So when we finally settled back in the States, I thought, okay, it's time for me to start doing some things. But my kids had some adjustments getting the traditional US world coming from the outback of Australia. So when my husband got an offer to come up here to the DMV area, and he was a contractor at that time, no longer in the military other than in the reserves. And it was like, okay, what do? I still continued to do house cleaning because I thought, well, it's something that I know while I'm getting, used to the area. But then I wanted to use my brains instead of my brawn. And we had met a financial planner when we were in Texas who had convinced me that I would do great at that. I got all of my licenses, insurance, annuities, securities, whatnot, started working in that business. And I remember Richard, who got me started with this, he then called and said, Luanne, the mortgage market is booming. I want you to start a mortgage office for me. And I said, Richard, I have a mortgage. That's kind of all I know about it. And he said, oh, you'll figure it out. What jumped me into the most stressful period of my life was actually the deciding point of my life. I was sitting down with a couple who wanted to get pre-approved for a mortgage. And I got to see their credit report and started looking and thought, oh my gosh, you already have a mortgage, but it's in education debt. And I mentioned that to the young woman, and she said...
So what does a mortgage and education debt mean?
Well, she had over $200,000 in education debt from med school. And when I said that to her, and remember, this was 20 years ago. Now that education debt for med school is probably going to be somewhere in the range of $400,000 to $500,000.
Nowadays?
Yeah.
That's insane.
It is. It's crazy.
It's insane.
And that doesn't count undergrad. That's just advanced. So when I said that to her, she said, "Oh, that doesn't count because I'm not repaying it yet." Correct.
She's a doctor.
Yes.
But no financial
No.
understanding.
No, because
that-
they're a
was it
specialist in a different field.
Right, but was it accruing interest?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. Holy.
So it
Like
made
I'm
me
freaking out right
Yeah.
now on my own personal journey. It costs a lot to
Yes.
have done everything and build everything I am. And we were talking about, I got sidetracked for 6 months because of a very large client who wanted me to come internally, and I paused moving forward with what I had been building when I had great momentum going.
Yes.
Which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, I feel like almost, I'm not completely at the starting point, but I'm way, way back, and had this conversation with my financial person who's retiring and wanted to, so he caught me on one of the breaks, and I told him, I said, look, I need to figure something out. I either need to pull some of my money out. And he's like, we're not touching your money.
Yeah.
My husband is at retirement age, but is still working. He's like, we're touching your HELOC or we're touching Keith's, because it's all joint.
Yep.
And I said, like, you know, my husband is a corporate person and doesn't understand this whole entrepreneurial thing.
Oh, yes. Same
And-
household.
Right. Yes. And, you know, and I knew that there was going to be expenditures the first year or two before I really started to get on the back end, the other side of that, and be profitable. So I understood this coming into it. It's difficult.
It is.
You know, for me to come out of a corporate job with a good 6-figure income and then not making anything, and everybody's been trying to be understanding, except for my daughter who just started college, who was like having to readjust where mom, like,
Yeah.
you know, because a lot of the money, my husband can support us and all of our basic needs, and a lot of my income was all of the extras that we could do in life, right?
Yeah.
So, and without having that income, we've cut back on a lot of stuff that we used to be able to do.
I
So
can
anyways,
relate.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I had this conversation with my financial guy yesterday, is I have a lot of credit card debt at the moment, and I need to get this off, because I do not want that. I don't want to be wasting my money in interest rate in that way. And I need to figure out what that's going to look like, and I need to figure out by October 5th.
Yeah.
So,
You know, credit card debt, education debt, you know, it's very similar. Nobody wants it.
Yeah.
But the first thing that most people will say when you talk about doing a HELOC, because they're listening to the wrong kind of people, is, oh my gosh, don't touch your home. You could lose it.
the interest rate is so cheap.
Yeah, it's just
You're
you.
gonna,
I've
well, we have a
told-
lot of money in our home. We've been in our house for 20 years.
You know, you sometimes you have to remove that emotional response and just look at it from a strategic response.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients all the time, put blinders on, kind of like a racehorse. You know, you've got the blinders so that you're just looking at what's in front of you instead of all of those things off to the side. And if you can be a little bit more strategic with your retirement planning, with your college planning, with your debt planning and such, it makes more sense. And that's why when I started my business, it was more to bring that education to families that didn't realize that college debt or the cost of college is going to have a major impact on retirement. Because if you're spending X amount of dollars from even from your savings, from your day-to-day purchases or your day-to-day earnings, and you're spending it unnecessarily by overspending for a big name school just because of the prestige or such, then that money, even though maybe you didn't take on the loans for it, you're taking a loan on your future because it's not sitting somewhere saving and it's not compounding.